Thank you very much, everyone who's here. Honorable Minister in the Presidency responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities, thank you for making time in the midst of your busy schedule to attend this very important panel discussion focusing on renewable energy and women. The panel discussion aims at exploring the regulatory environment within the Independent Power Producer Program and its value chain for the empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Honorable Minister, allow me to start by acknowledging the presence of our highly esteemed team of panelists, which consists of very powerful women in the energy sector. We have here with us Ms. Lebogang Zulu, who is our moderator for the day. Ms. Lebogang Zulu is the founder and CEO of the AV Group of companies that specializes in the construction and manufacturing of alternative building materials and products. Ms. Zulu is an award-winning entrepreneur with over 18 years worth of experience in the energy and construction sector, and very passionate about the green building environment. By the way, she is an engineer by profession. She also has been instrumental in the successful completion of the multi-million rand project. Her commitment to the gender equality agenda is evident in the IBT Women and Youth Construction and Industrialization Capacity Development Program, which she has developed and is driving passionately. Ms. Zulu will be joined by other panel members of the team, consisting of Ms. Bertha Dlamini, who is the founding president of African Women in Energy and Power, an executive member of the BRICS Women Alliance, Ms. Nozibele Makanda from Salga, Ms. Priska Soka, representing Women in Oil and Energy, WUSA, as well as Ms. Elizabeth Marab, who is the Chief Director in the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. I will not go into details regarding the panelist background, as this will be covered by our moderator. However, you can see that our panelist represents women from diverse backgrounds within the energy sector, and we are confident that we will emerge with rich discussions which will inform our mandate and interventions going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities is making its first appearance and participation in the Africa Energy Indaba. And this is not the last. The Africa Energy Indaba is important for the department, given the mandate that we are driving, which is to regulate the socio-economic empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities and their rights. Today, we are not only focusing at women as consumers or users of energy, but more emphasis on the renewable energy as a key strategic sector to tackle the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality faced by women, but also to look at women who want to participate and contribute as entrepreneurs who are qualified to work within this, this sector, where we are looking more specifically at Independent Power Producer Program, regulatory environment, and its value chain. The energy sector is a strategic sector which has direct and indirect impact on women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and huge potential for economic empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. This is in line with the National Development Plan 2030 and its vision for climate change, which is the reduction of dependency on carbon, natural resources, and energy, while balancing the transition with the objective of increasing employment and reducing inequality. In response to the call by the NDP, government has introduced the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program, which represents one of the policy interventions by government. Today's panel discussion is crucial because while the energy sector in South Africa is highly regulated, there are important legislative developments that has been introduced to enable independent power producers to operate in the market. Today, we have gathered a team of panelists who are experts in the field who will assist us to explore and dissect the new developments and their implications for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We will also explore how the opening of the market will translate into socioeconomic benefits for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to fully participate in the deliberations and join in this conversation. I welcome all of you here and look forward to your discussions. I thank you very much. Without wasting time, I would like to call on the minister, our minister, Minister Maite Nkoane-Mashabane, the Minister for Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. She will be taking us through the keynote address. Over to you, Minister. Thank you very much.
Program Director, Facilitator for the day, Ms. Lebohang Zulu, fellow panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The participation of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities in the year 2022 Africa Energy D.O.W brings forward a clear message. We, on the margins, must inform the development and growth of our continent. The department's participation in this year's D.O.W includes hosting 3 panel discussions on the different perspectives to women's effective participation in the energy sector. It will drive targeted messaging on women in the energy sector throughout its exhibition. This is in line with the departmental mandate to regulate the socio-economic empowerment and rights of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. I want to use this opportunity to recognize our Director General's Advocate Nkateko Joyce Maluleke for ensuring our department continues to strengthen strategic partnerships with captains of industries and organizations and women in the energy sector. Distinguished guests, today we start by having challenging conversations. We need to explore the implications of the regulatory environment in the energy sector. We need to engage the possible opportunities, benefits, and implications. We must interrogate whether the regulatory environment promotes the effective participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in this energy sector. The Africa Energy D.O.W provides us with a continental platform to raise awareness, to advocate for the effective participation of women in the energy value chain. For fundamental change to happen in the energy sector, we must be prepared to tackle the task of transformation. Transformation of the energy sector must translate into the active participation of women and women-owned businesses in the energy value chain. We need to be at the forefront of entrepreneurship and innovative energy solutions in the production, distribution, and servicing of energy technologies. To realize this transformative agenda in the energy sector, we must invest in access to innovative and affordable financial products. Equally, to achieve transformation, we must address the different structural, social, and economic barriers women experience. Ladies and gentlemen, during the 2022 State of the Nation address, His Excellency President Ramaphosa emphasized the need for the reliable and accessible energy in order to promote economic and social progress. The call for economic reconstruction and recovery is key in mitigating socio-economic global impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak which started in year 2020. Old and emerging economies need reliable energy to thrive. The absence of reliable energy resources threatens livelihoods, disrupts business activities, and places additional strain on families and communities. In his speech, His Excellency President Ramaphosa emphasized again the need for developing social compacts across key sectors to address the social ills present in our country, including access to reliable energy and electricity. The President indicated that the country is implementing fundamental changes to the structure of the electricity sector. This includes approval of amendments to the Electricity Regulation Act 2006. The legislative amendments are a demonstration of government's commitment and political will to create an environment which provides an opportunity for the private sector to play a role in the generation of electricity in our country. However, these amendments should also translate to enhancement of participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the value chain itself. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa is chairing the UN Women 66 Commission of the Status of Women. This year's theme is achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls in the context of climate change and environmental disaster risk reduction policies and programs. We must ensure that we are able to locate the transformation of the energy sector in the context of climate change. In addition, we must use the opportunity for public-private partnership in the rollout of renewable energy in the country. Therefore, I challenge all of us to form a social compact across the African continent to ensure that women are at the helm of providing innovative and transformative solution to the current energy crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, the tough work starts now. South Africa has reviewed global recognition in our progressive legislative frameworks, yet there are very little shifts in the practical material conditions of women in the energy sector. In South Africa, the role and participation of women in the energy sector as employees, investors, innovators, and entrepreneurs is limited. We must turn our progressive legislation framework into action that work for our people. Program Director, the African Continental Free Trade Area is the largest in the world, the 54th African country committed to accelerating Africa's trade and development just a few days ago. To strengthen trade across the continent, we need to ensure that we have safe, renewable, and accessible energy. Women must equitably benefit from renewable energy initiatives and value chains. The trade agreement must also lobby and advocate for the effective participation and inclusion of women and key marginalized groups in development of the continent. This requires clear political leadership at every level of the value chain to enhance the participation of the economy, improve livelihoods, and enable them to contribute to sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, as a Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, we believe through extensive consultation with key stakeholders, particularly women, that we will be able to find sustainable solutions addressing the energy crisis across the continent and promote trade and inclusive development. I believe the diverse experts and vast experiences that will be exchanged throughout the Africa Energy Indaba will be the key in exploring the regulatory environment within the Independent Power Producer Program and its value chain for the empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your keynote address. All of us here have heard your wish and your intentions within this sector. Thank you very much, Minister. Now I will hand over to our moderator, Ms. Lebogang Zulu, to take over the panel discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. A very good afternoon to our esteemed panelists, the Honorable Minister of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Nkoane-Mashabane, the distinguished guests, policymakers and decision makers from the business community attending the 2022 Africa Energy Indaba, and of course to everyone joining this discussion from all parts of the world. So today I've got a very easy task of moderating a panel discussion that will address, amongst other issues, intersectional inequalities as barriers to the advancement and transformation of the energy sector. Now, this is a discussion that will be held between the most knowledgeable queens coming from both the public and private sector, whose combined wealth of knowledge and experience will help shape the future direction of women economic emancipation within the sector. So buckle up and open your minds to a world of new possibilities. So to kick off the discussions, presentations by our respective esteemed panelists and set the scene, do allow me to draw parallels between gender equality policies and pronouncements thereof and the actual reality on the ground, looking at 4 key themes in respect of the women empowerment agenda, specifically in the energy sector. So number 1, South Africa has made gains in advancing women's rights, in broadening access to education, in the provision of healthcare and social support to women, and in improving women's participation in the mainstream economy and decision-making. However, known to all of us is that the lived reality for millions of South African women is very different to the promise contained in our constitution. Millions of South African women still live in conditions of poverty and unemployment. Thousands of women entrepreneurs in the sector are struggling to access and or take up opportunities. Just procuring a tender document for opportunities in the RIP program cost around 25,000 Rand, let alone raising over 10 million before approaching co-funders. Now, the panelists will explore if these are part of systematic exclusionary strategies that are actually impeding participation of emerging players, including women, youth, and people with disabilities. That's the first theme. The second theme that the panelists would look at is to give effect to South African government's commitment to the upliftment of women. South Africa joined the Generation Equality Drive, a global campaign to achieve the gender equality by 2030. In fact, in August of 2020, Honorable President Ramaphosa pronounced that the government will set aside at least 40% of public procurement for businesses owned by women. Now, here's reality. Given the prevailing conflict in respect of the preferential procurement model of Black empowerment and economic inclusion, where on the one side, there are views which are currently making rounds in courts and circulating publicly, challenging the constitutionality of the preferential procurement model. And on the other side, we're sitting with the intended objectives of achieving a balanced economic state which truly reflects the demographics of the country. Now, in this context, the panelists will discuss and address the implications of these conflicting views and what are the available procurement tools that will aid our government's ability to achieve the economic emancipation ambitions of the preferential procurement policies. Number three, the key principles for the design of the RIP program, request for proposals, are based on a least cost model, while taking into consideration the present socio-economic challenges in the country. Now, given that in December 2020, 28 IPPs were announced, March 2021, a further 8, and June 2021, 3 more preferred bidders were announced, making a total of 39 IPPs pronounced by the Department of Minerals and Energy thus far. Now, in this context, our esteemed panelists will present and discuss practical solutions to measure and enforce the implementation of socio-economic spin-offs from the proposals that were submitted by the 39 IPPs across the project lifecycle and value chain. And lastly, the last theme of the panel discussion is drawn from the bid window 6 opportunities highlighted by President Ramaphosa during the 2022 State of the Nation address, where the president drew the country's attention to some of the immediate opportunities as the country forges ahead with rolling out renewable energy programs. Now, some of these opportunities include the 2,600 megawatt from bid window 6 of the RIP program, which will soon be opened. Number 2 is the 3,000 megawatt of gas power and 500 megawatts of battery storage. Now, RFPs for that will be released later this year. Now, there's a couple of considerations that the panelists will be looking at. So number 1, given that the evaluation criteria used by the Department of Minerals and Energy places more emphasis on price, that being the 90-10 principle. The second consideration is that one of the strategic and operational pillars supporting the department's women empowerment and gender equality strategy, currently known as WEG, is centered on gender mainstreaming to ensure that gender considerations are integrated effectively, even in the RIP program procurement. And lastly, given that 30% women, 2% people with disabilities, and 50% Black participations were targets that were pronounced in the energy policy of 1998, and those targets to date have not been met. Now, in this context, therefore, the panelists will then further discuss and explore possible solutions that can enable a higher percentage of participation by women, youth, and persons with disabilities to take up the very same opportunities that were pronounced by the state president during SONA. So to help us unpack these conversations, the key topic for today's discussion is focused on exploring the regulatory environment within the IPP program and its value chain for empowerment of women, youth, and people with disabilities. I know it's a very broad topic. However, in the interest of moving away from rhetoric topical discussions into more practical and solution-oriented discussion, we have a panel of highly accomplished women in the energy sector whose wealth of knowledge and experience will certainly help us unpack this particular topic. So first up, we have Ms. Betha Dlamini, my dear sister and colleague at the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. Betha is the founding president of Africa Women in Energy and Power, an organization that has 11 chapters within the African continent and whose primary objective is to accelerate participation of women entrepreneurs in the full value chains of power and energy in Africa. She is an accomplished entrepreneur with extensive knowledge and experience in the energy sector, spending over 18 years with a trail of awards behind her. So Ms. Dlamini is going to give us her 10-minute opening presentation. Over to you, Ms. Dlamini.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome to the viewers. Thank you for joining the Africa Indaba 2022 and all protocol observed. I am quickly going to take you through a presentation which I have prepared to create context in terms of who we are and context in terms of our contributions. So just a second as I get my sharing. Right. I am speaking from the African Women in Energy and Power, which is a nonprofit organization set up to accelerate the participation of women in the energy and power sector, not only in South Africa, but on the continent. We have 11 chapters in the continent, which makes this platform at the Africa Indaba, Energy Indaba, very relevant as it targets more than just South Africans. We have an ambition to target 22 countries and have since received awards for the work that we have done in accelerating the participation of women in the energy and power space, particularly orientating women on the value chain constructs within the energy space on the continent. And so our approach in orientating women entrepreneurs into the energy and power sector is very deliberate and very targeted. We ensure that they get to understand the construct of value chains, the regulatory regime that is at play, and the emerging technologies for products, services, solutions, and systems in the sector, so that they can choose to participate in the sector, exercise their own agency to form partnerships and to pursue opportunities in the sector, build value-adding networks, which is critical, and also access timely and relevant information. Therefore, they can organize themselves to win. The ambition of countries and the establishment of policies is to see entrepreneurs growing from a micro state of business to a multinational state of business. And in our country, in South Africa and on the continent, it is an economic imperative to see youth, women, and persons with disabilities participating in economy at a large scale and being supported through regulatory regimes, through access to finance, access to market, access to technology, to be able to participate effectively in the energy and power sector, in domestic markets and in international markets or intercontinental markets. We support the key sustainable development goals that focus on energy, which is gender mainstreaming, obviously, but transitioning to alternative, clean, affordable energies, SDG 7, creating sustainable employment, productive employment. Most importantly, working within the energy ecosystem to form partnerships that support the participation of women. Before we can explore the regulatory developments in the sector, it's important that we look at opportunities that are emerging and therefore create the context for reviewing policy or for criticizing policy or giving solutions. From the REAP program, bid windows are coming up. We know that in the recent State of the Nation address, the president has mentioned bid window 6 that's coming up, and also has mentioned other products from previous bid windows that are coming online. This will address the shortage of power in the country, which is equivalent to 4,000 megawatts. This provides an opportunity for entrepreneurs, but for key players who have already secured utility scale projects to critically examine their socio-economic development targets and to the degree to which it accommodates and supports the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We also know that President Ramaphosa announced that large power users can generate up to 100 megawatts without needing to obtain a license, which means previously there was a policy that said 1 megawatt, and you need to obtain a license to increase that threshold. Obtaining a license has been removed to a threshold up to 100 megawatt, which is quite a huge capacity. When we look at the number of large power users that are currently buying power from Eskom, we are looking at over 120,000 large power users in the country who will be looking at alternative sources of energy, who will be looking into independent power producers to build them these small, medium-sized power plants to support their systems. Given the supply constraint of the country, we will see a rapid rate of transitioning from the grid to independent or decentralized grids. This is opening a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs in the renewable energy and a huge opportunity for independent power producers who can obtain power purchase agreements from these large power users. Recently, also, Eskom announced that its flagship program in the battery energy storage system area is getting off with speed, which includes 90 sites in different parts of the country. Again, a new value chain that is evolving and emerging in our country. And it will also do so in other countries. And the question we need to ask ourselves, to what extent will these new emerging value chains accommodate the participation of first-time players in that area? The repowering and repurposing of power stations that are being decommissioned is also opening another world of opportunities that can be explored for reskilling and accommodating youth, women, and persons with disabilities that are affected by job losses in that particular area, and also focusing on enterprise development. The just energy transition took center stage at COP26 as countries were exploring how they could transition from carbon-intensive energy sources to decarbonized clean energy sources. South Africa is no different, and it has made commitments to its nationally determined contributions to reduce carbon emissions across multiple sectors, which means all our productive sectors in the economy will be pursuing alternative sources of energy, again compounding the scale, positively compounding the scale of opportunity and demand for independent power producers and for renewable energy sources across the economy. We also know that multinational development banks have already declared that they will only finance infrastructure projects that show considerable targets for gender mainstreaming. We also know that a lot of gender mainstreaming activities have focused on employment equity and very little on enterprise development. In a space such as South Africa, where we are needing to create jobs and improve the rate of employment, enterprise development and supporting enterprises in all sectors, including energy and power, is critical. We know that the linkages between gender, entrepreneurship, and electricity have been left addressed, and therefore it calls for immediate attention to the regulatory space that drives the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in value chains. Some of the challenges that we have identified is these opportunities that are emerging, that are creating a vast landscape of capital-intensive projects are happening without a compact between government and civil society on the country's socio-economic development targets, especially looking at Black ownership, women ownership, Black management, youth participations, women-owned and led company participation at an operational level and not only at an ownership level, and persons with disabilities. The lack of this very specific compact means that we are opening a huge market that will need to self-regulate to include socioeconomic development targets. While there are many opportunities coming up, we know the lived experience of women entrepreneurs when it comes to access to funding is a very challenging journey. There is very limited equity funding that is available for women to enable them to participate in this capital-intensive sector, and therefore we need to consider how the financing, the project financing fraternity can transform itself to avail catalytic financing instruments to support women. Upfront planning on strategic initiatives for inclusivity is lacking. We're talking about this project after the policy has been determined, with nothing that supports directly the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, with no targets set, with no compact in the sector. And therefore, this fragmented approach that we are experiencing for participation further diminishes the rate at which we can accelerate the participation of women in the sector. These are some of the areas that we need to look at. When we look at gender mainstreaming in its broadness, we do not have a single funded agency, such as the Youth Agency, to look after the collective participation of women across sectors. Procurement panels for the energy sector, the fulfillment of the proclamation that 40% procurement spent by public sector should be designated to women. The policies need to be reviewed so that we can remove contradictory clauses, especially where set aside is seen as being illegal or is being outside of the regulatory framework. How do we pronounce that 40% of public spend, procurement spend, must be designated to women when there are no supportive legislative pieces and tools that enable such a designation, the execution of such a designation? No opportunity for women, youth, and persons with disability to play leading profitable roles in South Africa's renewable energy and its transition into clean energy. This does not remove the responsibility from the entrepreneur's perspective to do the research, to organize to win, to connect with the right people, to be entrenched in the sector. But we are saying, as we see it, a lot of the utility scale projects and even medium-sized projects that are availed due to the policy changes are being taken over by international independent power producers who come to our shores with stronger balance sheets, with track records, with skills, technical skills that we lack, with intellectual property that we do not have. Those are the ones that are at the forefront of taking advantage of the opportunities that our regulatory regime is availing. The question we need to ask is, what next? How then do we ensure the participation of women, youth, and persons living with disabilities? We are posing a challenge to the private sector, who are largely the beneficiaries from these opportunities brought about by the policy changes. We are saying, in the absence of a social compact, in the absence of a regulatory framework for enforcing the participation of women, private sector has the unique opportunity to design a model that can ensure socio-economic development targets are met in the energy sector without the interference of government, and to say to the government, this is best practice and this is how we commit as private sector to ensure that South Africa and South Africans will benefit productively and profitably from the opportunities that are emerging in the renewable energy sector. We believe that if private sector truly takes this challenge and formulate solutions for the sector, we will see that a lot of the hurdles that are placed in front of women as they seek to participate in the energy sector will be removed swiftly. Hurdles such as access to technology, access to market, access to finance, access to credible market information, access to credible networks. We need private sector to take the lead and say to civil society and say to the public sector, we believe this is the best way to execute socio-economic development in the energy sector. And as African women in energy and power, we are ready to help and assist where we can. This is the time. My presentation is somehow frozen, but I will proceed. Having said that, I don't know what has happened to my presentation, but I'll try, and I hope you can still see it. Having said that, our proposal is therefore the following: with private sector taking the challenge to design models that will ensure socioeconomic development targets are met and exceeded, securing the participation of all South Africans in the energy value chains. We propose that there's a renewable energy sector charter that will ensure that such a compact exists between private sector, public sector, and civil society. We propose that there is a strengthening of the powers of the Gender Ministerial Council for the energy sector to spearhead the establishment of the sectoral charter. We propose that an appropriate, structured, and sufficiently financed institution with a relevant constitutional authority for gender mainstreaming across the energy economy is set up. We also propose that there is a president-led multi-stakeholder campaign to promote supportive attitudes, values and behaviors and culture to support a barrier-free sector for women-owned businesses, youth, and people living with disabilities in the energy sector. A pervasive finance sector transformation task team to avail liquidity pots for women project developers, especially first-time women project developers in the renewable energy space. We propose that there are REAP bid windows that are specifically designated for women, for youth, and persons with disabilities, that there is a multi-stakeholder committee to fast-track access to suitable land for women, youth, and persons with disabilities for renewable energy. We propose that there is a South African incubator for first-time independent power producers that will ensure that women, youth, and persons with disabilities that are willing to participate as independent power producers are afforded the opportunity to learn how to design, how to design a power plant, how to build commercial models, how to operate and maintain power plants such that they can be independent power producers in future and be able to take advantage of the emerging markets. And finally, we also propose that there is a review of the procurement policies across all of public sector, focusing on municipal electricity utilities and their ability to procure from youth at 30% designation, persons with disabilities at 7% designation, and 40% for women. We also propose that there is a mandatory audit of women, youth, and persons with disabilities participation across value chains and across existing energy projects, so that we have a baseline to see the rate of compliance with socio-economic development targets determined by the IPP and the REAP bid windows, and we're able to set a benchmark and measure the increase or the progress over a period of time. And this is our contribution to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, Ms. Dlamini, for your powerful input. Standing out, of course, is the vision that has been set out by IWEP to enable women-owned businesses to transition from micro-state to multinationals. That was quite key. Challenge has been brought forward to the private sector and to our government. That will form part of the bigger discussions that will happen this afternoon. Up next, we have Ms. Nozibele Makanda, who is heading up the Health, Community Services and Inclusivity at SALGA. With institutional knowledge and experience spanning over a couple of years, Makanda has held key positions in municipalities across the country, which includes political portfolios such as executive mayoral and speaker positions. Her intimate knowledge of local government will prove invaluable in today's topic as we unpack and explore the regulatory environment for the empowerment of women within the RIP program and its value chains. Over to you, Memakanda, for your 10-minute opening presentation. We are a bit behind time, so you'll have time from now till 1:15. Thank you.
Thank you, Lebogang, so much. A very good afternoon to you, Honorable Minister, Maite Nkoane-Mashabane, to our DG, my esteemed fellow panelists. I will zoom into the presentation as guided by the theme and topic. And just to indicate that I will be dealing with the following format, that a brief introduction, exploring how the opening of the market will translate into socio-economic benefits for women, youth, and persons with disabilities, discuss proposals to ensure the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the energy sector value chain, discuss company socio-economic targets, and make an undertaking on how these will ensure that the inclusion of socio-economic benefits and inclusion targets are met or realized. And just as a way of a background or introduction, that the South African Local Government Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Strategic Guide for Local Government was developed in 2021. So practically new into the renewable energy sector as local government because of the countrywide legislation that was only limiting it to the national government. So we do have an update for a strategy that we developed in anticipation with our uptake as local government that was funded by the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, and undertaken in consultation with municipalities across the country. The guide has been updated to reflect the changes as in the energy sector. So the intention is to provide a clear program of action for local government to promote development of energy efficiency and renewable energy in line with the national policy direction within the local government mandates, thereby contributing to achieving national climate mitigation and efficiency targets. It is designed to offer technical support led by SALGA for those tasked with strengthening the capacity of municipalities to undertake this work. The guide arrives at an opportune time for South Africa's energy sector, which is rapidly changing, shifting from large-scale conventional power plants to low-carbon distributed generation. The emergence of low-cost renewable energy technologies and distributed energy generation makes it possible for municipalities to play a significant role in energy supply, distribution, and EE. In addition, the growing importance of green economy as a lever to stimulate post-COVID-19 economic recovery. This presents South African municipalities, particularly the big cities, with the opportunity to unleash their transformative potential, find their own innovative decentralized solution to meet their energy needs, and future-proof their energy systems. The guide provides thus very practical information on the types of interventions that could form part of the energy strategy of individual municipalities. In effect, it offers a menu of options to municipalities, enabling municipal officials to develop energy strategies in-house. It is not prescriptive, but multidimensional and can be adapted to the needs and capacity of all municipalities. It requires that municipalities adopt and adapt the broad strategic direction presented here within the strategic action plan. Now, in terms of exploring the opening of the market for the access of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, what we have is that in terms of the renewable energy value chain and what is the current situation in respect of demand and supply in the various components of the value chain, we see that the energy sector is undergoing a major transition both globally and nationally as renewable energy takes center stage year on year. There has been substantial transformation in the energy landscape across the world in general, and much of the energy policy shift in South Africa in particular. For example, the electricity supply landscape is increasingly becoming decentralized and competitive. Affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy is the lifeblood of the economy. In 2018, SALGA hosted an energy summit with the theme Defining the Energy Future for Local Government in South Africa. The aim of the summit was to collectively discuss how the changing energy landscape is affecting municipalities economically, legally, financially, and institutionally, as well as how municipalities can respond to these changes. The summit declaration highlighted some of the key aspects as follows: the importance of promoting local content within the current energy transition, and to ensure that the historically disadvantaged groups are enabled to take advantage of the opportunities within the industry value chain, but more especially on the dispensation of new business models coming as a result of renewable energy. That the regulatory environment was inhibiting instead of enabling the transition, where neither the energy transition nor the role of local government was acknowledged within the then Integrated Resource Plan, IRP 2019, or the ministerial determination for new energy generation. Customer-owned supply, that is commercial, industrial, and household, if properly managed, can be an important asset both to customers and to the electricity distributor, and as this will allow for load balancing and optimum use of own supply, and adopt and embrace the transition if we want to enable reliable, clean, environmentally sound, sustainable, affordable, and secure energy for all. The local government gains post-2019 Energy Summit are as follows. IRP 2019 was published and pronounced the role of local government in the country's future energy landscape for the first time ever. The national government amended electricity regulations on the new generation capacity as gazetted in October 2020 to allow municipalities to procure generation capacity from private parties. It amended Electricity Regulations Act, Schedule 2, licensing exemption and registration was gazetted on 20th August 2021 to exempt generation facilities up to 100 megawatts from licensing requirements. Promulgation of small-scale embedded generation rules. SALGA's capacity building programs on small-scale embedded generation has so far trained over 70 municipalities. This list of municipal employees trained included a number of women as well as the youth. NERSA started approving small-scale embedded generation tariffs in municipalities, which enabled the proliferation of more rooftop solar PV installations and projects. SALGA, National Treasury, and other stakeholders are developing frameworks and toolkits for municipal power procurement to deal exactly with the policy environment. The gains above provided more opportunities for localization, employment, capacitation in municipal spaces, especially for our and mainstreaming opportunities across the sectors of our communities. In terms of the proposals that ensure participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the sector, in the energy sector value chain, the opportunities that I'm going to present are kind of low-hanging fruits to make transformative interventions that can support women, youth, persons with disabilities in terms of beneficiation. And there are several of these opportunities currently to capacitate previously disadvantaged group. SALGA municipalities, rather SALGA with its member municipalities have engaged on several training programs to capacitate the municipal employees, prioritizing women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The City of Cape Town, for example, offers electricians a substantial incentive to photovoltaic installations, training, plus PV green card assessment. Male electricians who live in Cape Town were eligible for 75% subsidy, whilst female electricians were eligible for 100% subsidy from the City of Cape Town. This significant contribution towards skills development in the PV industry and uplifting of female engineering in the field has gone a long way. PV installations not only require a certificate of competency, that is the COC, but a PV green card as well. The PV green card is a municipal recommendation which acts as an additional quality assurance mechanism. All electricians who successfully pass the PV assessment qualify to issue the PV green cards. Thus, the qualification offers electricians new business opportunities, and all our designated groups are part of such beneficiaries in the big cities. In eThekwini municipality, Honorable Minister, there is a consultation that was done with the with partners, and including our GIZ, with the regards to offering the PV green card training at the municipality training center. And This is ongoing, and it will allow the municipality to train more women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the PV sector with regards to installations, etc. Currently, there are few female engineers working in engineering companies that are doing the designs for PV systems to be installed in Durban. eThekwini municipality is in the process of setting up a renewable energy department to focus on dealing with all small-scale embedded generation projects that would include female staff members. The Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality Electrical Training Center is accredited, or rather has accreditation to train solar PV courses. Training material, that is in terms of the green card, have been developed and will proceed with training once COVID-19 is more under control. This will allow the municipality to train more women in the PV sector with regards to the installation of the PV, etc. Looking into the uplifting of female staff to become green card holders. SALGA, together with its partners, again, National Treasury and the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, have provided the following training for the municipal employees, with more than 20% participants being female. The municipal SSEG support program that took place on 18 to 19 March 2021, where over 99 municipal employees attended. The SSEG tariff training that took place in March 2021, over 4 days. The grid impact studies that took place over 3 days in August 2021, where 85 municipal employees participated. The bi-directional metering training that has taken place again over 3 days in September 2021, and over 50 municipal employees attending this training. Project finance principles for renewable energy.
Sorry, Ms. Makanda, I'm going to grace you with 1 more minute. We're just slightly over your time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. But we've held a number of projects, training and building capacity in municipalities. And in terms of the socio-economic targets and making undertakings, we have identified the following: the supply chain management policy and the standard operation procedures in municipalities should promote and support the participation of youth, women, and people with disabilities, and with stringent rules for compliance with this requirement embedded into the municipal policies and monitored accordingly. And that municipalities must ensure localization in terms of the content rules by National Treasury and the Department of Trade and Industry. The bylaws of municipalities must also ensure that the investors in the local economy, especially at production factories of renewable components, give opportunities and training for women, youth, and persons with disabilities, and that municipalities are soon going to be signing power purchase agreement with IPPs. The compliance to local content as well as capacitation of local citizens is going to be key in these projects, from the procurement of the equipment to the installation and commissioning of power stations. And lastly, opportunities that are readily available for women, youth, and persons with disabilities as follows: laminated PV modules, module frames, DC combined boxes, mounting structure, and inverters. And all of these are more than 30%. As I conclude, Chairperson, I'm sorry for your time. We are also in the process of developing in fact, we're finalizing a gender mainstreaming integrated for vulnerable groups. And we are going to ensure that our focal groups monitor the targets for women. And we agree totally with 40% allocation to women. Because already we have 40% allocation to youth in terms of the supply chain management policy. And we're going to ensure that these targets are actually met by municipalities. And of course, the Local Economic Development Directorate must ensure that it builds capacity to those women that have an interest in joining the sector. Thank you very much, I'm sorry, our moderator. Apologies again for the time.
No problem. Thank you very much, Makanda. That was absolutely brilliant input. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Guides have been developed by SALGA already. The key challenge now is a pragmatic approach towards the implementation of such brilliant strategies. And thanks again for presenting immediate opportunities. I'm sure all the practitioners in the field joining us today are quite excited to hear of such opportunities. So up next, we have Ms. Priska Soko, a chartered accountant by profession, with over 25 years, extensive experience in financial auditing and business development work in both the public and private sector. Now, this powerhouse will certainly enable us to practically unpack challenges, and present solutions to the gender funding gap that exists on top of the known regulatory, procedural, technical, and other financial hurdles, some of which Ms. Lamine did refer to earlier on, that are really facing the renewable energy sector. Ms. Soko is part of the Energy Sector Gender Ministerial Advisory Committee member and the chairperson of the African Women in Business, another trailblazer with a list of notable awards behind her. Over to you, Ms. Soko. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lebohang. In the interest of time, allow me to share my presentation. I would like to talk to the practical issues affecting women who are investing in the renewable energy sector. I'm representing Women in Oil and Energy of South Africa today as the business development executive for the group. We are practically in the space investing in the opportunities that are coming through the solar and wind energy projects in South Africa. So I'm not going to bore us with who is WUSA. I would like to invite everybody to go to our website to understand who we are at www.woesa.com. You will see the companies that we have invested in and the companies that we are participating as shareholders. I want to talk about the key issues. Thank you to the panelists, the fellow panelists who have spoken before me. We have articulated some of the main problems that we are having as women in the sector. I want to share with us the key issues affecting women from the practical experience of us preparing projects for the bid window 5. So in 2021, WUSA participated as part of representing the Black women ownership in one of the local companies that are having 450 megawatts worth of projects in solar and within the local space of South Africa. And so we were invited to take on equity into this local company, which is a very much big company in terms of the renewable energy space. And upon doing our due diligence exercise on this business that is in the market space, we found out that the company is actually very, very viable. The projects are actually projects that have already been developed. The land has been acquired. The licensing was already issued. You know, in this space, there's a lot of licensing that needs to be done, and the applications of the EAs have been done. But some of the red tape, or I can say the logistics around the issuing of the EA licensing, which has to do with publicizing in the public space, in the media, and making sure that every community participates and approves of a project in their area. They take a long time. They don't take 1 day. They don't take 2 months. It's a process on its own to have a project approved by community to say, go ahead, and you can then build your solar plant in this area. And there are also other issues that we need to take care of, the issues of the grid. Where is the grid located versus where your project you want to do, the place where your project you want to do. And if the grid is full, you cannot have space. So even if you have a nice, beautiful land that can really push your capacity to 95% performance, but if you are far away from the grid, you might actually have most of that energy wasted without it being off-taken to the grid. So we got to learn about the technicalities around putting up a project. And on the last minute before the bid window 5 closed, we could not get the paperwork that we needed from one of the departments for the EA licensing. And it actually costed us not to have what we call a confirmed offtake from a main participant, because in every IPP project, you will have one big company, international company, that comes and takes the majority equity, or 51%. In our case, it was 49% versus 50%. So it was 50% or 51% shareholder who was an international company. They wanted the conditions, precedents to be fulfilled before we submit our bid for bid window 5. And so we could tick some of the things, but there's 1 or 2 loose ends that caused us not to get into the bid window 5. And as women, we had said we want to participate on a influential position, not a weaker position, because government had said 5% minimum participation of women, but 5% does not give you a board seat to decide on the participation of the full value chain, from the building, the development of the project itself. There's a lot of opportunities for business to participate. But if women are not sitting on the board, it means that this major shareholder, who is an international participant, has more say than you with 5%. So if you have to up your game and say, we want to then participate at a minimum of 15% to give us at least 1 seat in the board, and to raise money, capital for that 15% or 30% equity in such a huge project of 200 megawatt production, it requires a lot of money, millions of rands upfront. And so this is what we experienced, that we had the appetite to participate at a higher level, but our cash flow was not permitting for us to get there as women. So that's the main challenge that we have: lack of adequate on-cash reserves to contribute towards meaningful IPP equity purchase on available projects within South Africa. We don't have a problem of projects. We've got a problem of raising our own capital, our own cash as women. Money that is free flow, that is not borrowed from another entity, that comes through our own organization. And to raise even 5 million from women, they are already having challenges of lockdown, of COVID-19 implications. Not a lot of women have got free money floating around and say, okay, there's women in oil and energy, I'm going to put my 5 million there, 2 million there, 10 million there. So we could not find such kind of women. And we could not also reach out to the ordinary women, who are interested in participating even at a broader space, because we are a public organization. Our investment company is a public company. So we issue shares that are valued very little, but then you'd need to have 1 million women participate, or 100,000 women participating, buying shares of 1,000 rands minimum for you to be having money that is valuable. So broader women participation investments also is a challenge, to have a person put 2,000 rands of their money into the kitty that we raise our own funding. It's actually a mission, that is a serious mission, to get to 10,000 women to give you 1,000 rands. It's easy to talk about it, but when it comes to the practicality of advertising and reaching out to women to say, let's participate, it's a problem to have 10,000 women giving you 1,000 rands for investment equity, for long-term investments, or even 100,000 women. And once they invest, normally the understanding of women with investments, they would want the money now. They would not want to wait for 10 years to have their return on their investments. And most of these IPP projects, that's the timeline. If you participate and put your money aside, let's say you had 500,000 you've invested as an ordinary woman into this project, it's a lot of money that you're taking out of your own estate and saying, I'm risking the money that I should hand over to my children and putting it into IPP project. But when am I going to get my 500,000 back? Plus the profit, plus the return, you would find that sometimes you have to wait for about 10 years or even more to really get your money back. And so many women, they don't have that capacity to wait for a return because we are literally just surviving. And so most projects, they operate between 70% debt and 30% equity. So debt is not a problem. South African government has to be applauded because they have really shown commitment to funding for these renewable energy projects. There is money available. DBSA has got money available for renewable energy. IDC has got money available. So the 70% part of the debt is not a problem. Even international funders, we actually found that money is cheaper even outside of South Africa. But then when you are participating in the bid window, government window, the international funding that is cheaper, sometimes it comes with a term sheet that is US dollar based. And one of the requirements in the bid windows is that your term sheet should be rand based, not US dollar based. So we actually eliminate most of the cheaper money that is there available in the world. So we will be stuck with the local money that is a little bit more expensive than the rest. But it's half a loaf is better than nothing. When government says, yes, we want to participate, yes, we want women to be part of this, and they come up with the funding, which is good. But then when we went through the, the evaluation stage at one of the local funders, they said, yes, we have approved this project. We have given you the money for all the 450 megawatts if you'd want, but we fund 90% for BEE. And 10%, you should raise your own equity. And we're talking about raising like 1.5 billion rands. And then 10% is about 150 million rands. And women would want to participate at like 10% of that, or 15% of that, or 30% of that. So which means you should raise something about 30 million to 40 million of your own capital as a woman group to be able to participate in this broader, bigger sense of the opportunity. And where do you find a women company, a Black woman-owned company with 40 million rand sitting in their bank account? It's so difficult to get because we also, as set up businesses, we've invested in other sectors, in other businesses before, and we're still waiting for the dividends to flow, waiting for the cash to build up from the previous investments. And so it's actually a vicious cycle where we end up going back to the market and say, now we have to raise again 30 million cash. So women, where are you? Can we put some more money? And you go to the same women, they'll say, but I gave you my 2 million for that other project, you didn't pay me back. Now you want another money, when are we going to get? So we won't even invest. So many times you find that as you want to participate in more projects, women become despondent. They would say, no, we haven't received our return on the previous investment, so we cannot invest again. So these are the challenges, the practical challenges. As much as women want to participate, but the landing page is not easy for an ordinary woman to get into the space. And so the other issue that we found in terms of our issues affecting the women is lack of adequate on cash reserves that contribute to meaningful, this one I've already done. So this balance sheets are not adequate. Our balance sheets in our businesses, because when we participate, we don't participate as individuals. Yes.
I'm going to grace you with 1 more minute. We're already 2 minutes over your time.
Oh, no, thank you. This 1 minute, I'm just going to finish this. When we are participating in renewable energy projects, we don't participate as individuals. We participate in organized businesses, companies that are registered. And most companies, they don't have a balance sheet. Or if they do have it, it's not adequate enough to carry the debt that you'll be raising for participating. And so you find that the limitation is that the balance sheet has got no assets. You are participating in a project, but your balance sheet has got no assets. So you would need a financing company that really
what can I say, understands that they are empowering women to start from scratch, not to look for historical results, historical balance sheets. And most women, they don't have that. And that's a problem. That's a big problem when it comes to due diligence phases of these projects. So valuations also of the IPP financial models, they need financial experts to advise, and they don't come cheap. You'd need to then consult Deloitte and Touche, consult Ernst & Y, PricewaterhouseCoopers to give you opinion on what your investment is like, the risks that are attached to it. And that is not easy for women to have money to pay these kind of organizations to do work for them. So also when it comes to the debt itself, it is ranked so differently. There is senior debt versus BEE funding debt. And so it comes on the term sheets, and those term sheets, women need to understand what it means before they put their dotted line, and shareholders agreements, because those who control these businesses and those who come with big capital, they will put dotted lines in these agreements that will affect us for the next 10 years that you can't get a cent out of it. So these are the things to watch out on. And I would like to invite women to say, come, let's raise capital. We are currently in the market raising 30 million rands of our own in women in oil and energy for participation in bid window 6. We already have projects that we want to invest into. And so I'm inviting women to come and buy shares. Email Zozo, and she will give you share offer forms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Soko, and I'm sure all the entrepreneurs that are quite interested in this space will definitely be emailing you. So on a lighter note, it's quite encouraging that we are engaging in these robust discussions, practical outside the August month. This is quite encouraging, I must say. So you've touched on quite a couple of issues. If you may stop sharing your screen. Who's sharing screen right now? Is that?
It's Elizabeth.
Oh, is it Elizabeth? Oh, okay. Okay, madam, you just can't wait to get on with it. But Ms. Soko raised, quite a couple of issues affecting women in energy, oil, and the gas space. She made reference to licensing processes being flagged as one of the impediments by itself, raising own capital, resulting in missed opportunities because of processes outside the entrepreneur's control. So an emerging discussion is around the required gender lens towards financially supporting women. And I'm sure the panelists will discuss that during the course of the day. So up next, we have our beautiful Miss Elizabeth Marabwa. I hope I've pronounced your name properly, who is the Chief Director responsible for Program and Projects Management Office within the Department of Minerals and Energy. Another powerhouse whose experience spans over academia, leading to regulatory and policy development, covering the liquid fuels, gas, and electricity. An academic queen with extensive international experience, who's been involved in the development and review of documents such as the World Energy Outlooks. Marabwa is a board member of the South African National Energy Association. She is going to give us a 10-minute presentation addressing some of the key issues raised during the opening and also by the other panelist members, and take us through strategies employed by the department insofar as the gender lens and the socioeconomic issues. Over to you, Marabwa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Zulu. Thank you, DG Maluleke, for allowing us to have this opportunity, and the Minister for giving us the opportunity to discuss on women issues with respect to renewable energy program. I wanted to project a presentation, but I'm not going to do that. I would like to respond to most of the critical issues that have been raised in the discussion. First of all, I would like to start off by indicating that the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy has launched a Women Equality and Gender Transformation Strategy and Implementation Plan. I was going to present it, but I think we can get it on the internet. It's available for everyone to look at. And that strategy has also led to the establishment of what we call a gender council. A gender council will represent, have representatives from all sectors of the energy industry, and those gender champions are going to lead in their own sectors and ensure that they account to the minister what is taking place in the respective sectors. And with respect to the renewable energy sector, the minister had appointed a very, very successful lady, Ausilin Tuli. Unfortunately, she passed on, and minister will have to appoint another person to take over from her. So the structures for ensuring that women are supported are there. So there's no need to recreate other structures. And secondly, the minister has started a program of taking the strategy to the CEOs, because he is of the opinion that you cannot have a strategy sitting in the office and a strategy being implemented from below, but rather that take it to the CEOs, ask them to make commitment to implement it, and ask them to account for it on an annual basis and ensure that implementation takes place. So that the minister on the 16th of February met with 79 CEOs from the renewable energy industry, and he has submitted the strategy, and he has requested them to make commitments to make sure that that strategy is implemented. The Office of the Independent Power Producer Program was also invited, and the minister also instructed them to make sure that all the programs going forward are inclusive of women. Just to indicate, as we stand now, about 9,213 megawatts ought to be procured from different technologies of the renewable energy by 2030, and bid windows are starting as of March. So we need to make sure that you have yourself prepared and take part in those bid windows. Then number two, I also need to emphasize that as Ms. Soko has indicated, it is expensive business to invest in the IPP program. It requires deep pockets. It requires a lot of support from the financial institutions, but be that as it may, about 62.3 billion has been invested currently in the bid windows that have financially closed through equity funding. And of that, 32 billion is owned by B-BBEE. Secondly, so when you look at that, 34% of the renewable energy projects are currently owned by South Africans. Then thirdly, out of that ownership, we also have 9% of the bids that have been closed, financially closed, owned by communities. So from that perspective, you can actually see that although the progress is limited, there are specific tangible evidence that the renewable energy program is beginning to initiate inclusive processes. Then another important element also to discuss is the issue of procurement within the renewable energy program. As it is, in 74% of the procurement of all the projects that have reached financial closure have actually been by the BBEE. So about 74 billion is actually been spent on BBEE. Then another important point to also raise is that a total of 9,224 employment opportunities have been created during the implementation, construction and operation program of the bids. And of these, we looked at the number of women that have been appointed as leaders during the construction period, and about 144 women have been leading construction projects. That is Black South African women. We are actually constituting about 38% of the total top leaders or managers during the construction period. Then during the operations of the current IPPs that are in operation as we speak, about 281 women are in top leadership of the companies that are operating as IPPs. And of those, that number constitutes about 34% of the top management in the renewable energy companies. So the progress is limited, but it's something that is taking place. Then lastly, one of the important elements within the renewable energy spectrum is to make sure that we also ensure that we have young people coming into the system and taking and occupying those strategic positions, especially those related to STEM subjects, because they are the ones that are high paying. The Independent Power Producer Program has already spent about 123 million in terms of bursaries, and those bursaries are specifically designated for young people coming from the historically disadvantaged, and particularly from the rural areas. And of the 123 million, about 62% of the bursaries have been spent on female students. So we also are emphasizing on ensuring that we have a stream of academically empowered women who can move into the industry and ensure that we succeed. Then in terms of the participation, we have realized that it is very expensive to get into the bigger windows. And the minister has promulgated the small-scale embedded generation program, which has increased from 1 megawatt to about 100 megawatts. That is an opportunity for women to come into the space and participate and actually learn from it and grow from it so that they can target the bigger windows. So that's a big opportunity which does not require as much funding as has already been indicated. As we have seen from what Ms. Soko has presented, it is an uphill task to come to ensure that we have sufficient funds to participate in the bigger windows. Then another important element of energy, which we need also to have an appreciation of, is the fact that energy is a catalyst into our economy. It is the one that contributes significantly to the competitiveness of the South African economy. If our energy costs are high and our cost of energy is extremely high, basically that price is filtered into our goods and services. Once it is infiltrated into our goods and services, we are competing at a global scale. If it is tourism, then it means our tourism facilities become expensive. If it is our mining products, it means our mining products become expensive. Therefore, we don't become competitive on the international market. That is why when the IPP program is actually being, the IPP program is based on the least cost to make sure that the energy that we produce, which is a catalyst and the engine for economic growth and development of the country, is produced at the lowest possible cost that enables the whole economy to thrive. So from that angle, we then need to have an appreciation of why the least cost is critical. And if you look at the Constitution, Section 217, it also says government, when it procures any good or a service, they need to procure it at the least cost price. So we cannot run away from the least cost element, but we need to make sure that we as women position ourselves in a way that allows us to attract funding for our projects, make sure that we form strategic partners in partnership with those that have money, but also what we have realized is the need for us to have a discussion with our financial institutions to make sure that they make a financial provision to support our women who are moving into this very expensive, very complex sector to be able to thrive within that sector. So in a nutshell, I would want to also encourage women to say, while we are focusing on the bigger element of the renewable energy program, we should also take note that the renewable energy is also being required to localize. Currently, 45% of products that are being used in the IPP program are procured locally. So women can also target that element of the value chain and make sure that you position yourself to provide certain services, certain technologies, certain inputs into the renewable energy independent power producer program, so that we don't just wait and complain, especially about the IPP program itself, but we can work through the value chain and have the maximum benefit from it. So from a localization point of view, there's an opportunity through the value chain. From an employment point of view, there's also an opportunity. Then from buying equity as well into the sector, there's also another opportunity in terms of ownership. Then lastly, the renewable, the IPP has also realized that it has been quite a challenge for women and for South Africans in general to participate in the program. And they are reviewing the requirements to make sure that they also take into consideration issues of job creation as an important element that will be considered in evaluation. Issues of local content is another important strategic element. And then issues of skills development, issues of ownership, and issues of supplier and enterprise development, so that we set aside funding to ensure that small companies, women and youth-owned companies that wants to participate, they are assisted and so that they are developed and are in a state that would enable them to participate. The companies have also committed to spend more money on enterprise development, to spend more money on training, especially for EPC contractors. The number of EPC contractors that are now in the renewable energy sector have actually increased, and I'm happy that Lebogang is here. You need to take advantage of that and position your company to become an EPC contractor of choice for the Renewable Independent Power Producer Program. And because of the small scale embedded generation, they will need women of your caliber to assist them in putting together the program. My colleague from Salga has indicated that through Ceratech and through a program that the industry is developing, they are also going to be funding small scale developers that would then provide the much needed skills that would allow you to participate in the sector at a smaller level, but progressively improving. With that, I would like to thank you for the opportunity, and I will be ready to take more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mema Rabwa. They say if she can learn, she can earn. It's quite encouraging to note that the community beneficiation stats you shared with us, we're happy to hear that there's definite movement in that regard. It's also encouraging that the department is taking the issue of women and youth empowerment quite seriously. The younger generation of girls in the STEM fields of study, listening to this discussion, are certainly motivated to know that the department is opening opportunities even at that level. I'd like to invite Ms. Dlamini and Ms. Soko to reflect and or ask probing questions to Ms. Maraba, just to close off on this particular discussion, because there were issues that were raised by Ms. Soko earlier. There were challenges that were also raised by Ms. Dlamini. So Member Rabwa has kind of like reflected and responded to some of those. So I'm opening the floor to both Ms. Dlamini and Ms. Soko. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zulu, for giving me the opportunity. I think we work quite closely with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and specifically with Ms. Elizabeth Marabwa. I think so we're quite familiar with the women empowerment and gender equality strategy and its ambitions. We also have done our assessment looking at the IPP office and their statistics in terms of what projects are meeting socioeconomic development targets. The question I have is, what is the feasibility of advocating for a renewable energy sector charter in the country that would foster the compact that is necessary between public sector, private sector, and civil society, and further anchor the participation of women, youth, and persons with disability in the center of policy advancement and industry advancement?
I think if we can take Ms. Soko to reflect, and then Ms. Maraba, you can then respond to both the queens.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for your presentation. And we applaud the Department of Minerals and Energy for the interventions that they are bringing into the IPP space. There's definitely some progress. And we would want to see the support for women EPC-owned companies that can actually perform and give services into this IPP space, because we normally face challenges that the shareholders, the majority shareholders of these projects, they already come with their own companies that they have already shortlisted for some of these downstream or full value chain opportunities within the development stage of the projects. And if you are not participatory on the shareholding space, it's difficult to enter as an EPC company to give services that are meaningful and at good value as a woman-owned company into a space that is already taken. And so the legislation itself should be able to differentiate and say, yes, you could have women ownership on equity, but we are looking at new participants in the procurement space rather than the women-owned companies that are already participatory on the equity level, and also rather than having the shareholders preserve some of the procurement spend for themselves using their own related women-owned companies. And so we need not to create competition amongst ourselves as women-owned businesses by bringing broader participation and diversifying the form of participation amongst the women-owned businesses.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Soko. To all the panelists, since we're almost out of time, I'm going to request within 30 seconds for each one of you to give us the main message that you would like to give to the audience that will be listening to this recording at the Africa Energy Indaba, the decision makers, your policy makers that will be attending that session. What is that key message that you would like them to take away? In 30 seconds, starting with Maraba.
Thank you very much. For me, renewable energy offers an opportunity across the value chain. It depends on your pocket. The department will make sure that we will discuss with the financial institutions to enable access to funding, which is very strategic. But women should also focus on becoming EPC contractors, supplying services across the value chain, and making sure that we also encourage our own children to be part of this growing sector, not only in South Africa, but it's an increasing global industry. And we need to control it as the Africans and make sure that we meet the challenges of energy poverty and energy access through harnessing the sun and mining the wind as those of natural resources that are abundantly available in our country and in our continent. With that, I thank you.
Thank you. Mema Kanda, your main message in 30 seconds to the Energy Indaba audience.
Thank you. Key to this, as Mayor Elizabeth has indicated, funding is a main issue even for municipalities. The capacity requirements for municipalities to fund the investment into the renewable energy are quite limited, and currently we only have the large cities that are investing into the energy sector, in renewable energy sector. But we are saying there are several opportunities for the previously disadvantaged groups within the renewable energy sector. And key to this is to ensure that the municipal policies are enabling and that the enforcement of compliance is institutionalized and capacitated to ensure that expected results are achieved in enabling the local content and capacitation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Soko, your 30-second message.
I'm just inviting ladies, women to buy shares in Women in Oil and Energy of South Africa so we can really meaningfully participate in the space. Own capital is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Lamini, your 30 seconds closing message.
The developments in the energy and power sector in South Africa are presenting a unique opportunity for private sector players to develop a socio-economic development framework that will ensure the participation of women, youth, and persons living with disability. For the first time, the sector has an opportunity to direct government on how socio-economic development targets can be met without government prescribing to the private sector. So this is a unique opportunity. And we hope that the private sector will take on the opportunity as willing participants in the transformation of the country and ensuring that citizens of South Africa have equitable participation in its economy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There we have it, DG, colleagues. It's been very robust. It's been brilliant discussions, very important input. It wasn't just a session where the queens in the renewable energy space were speaking about challenges, but they were also presenting solutions. There's quite a couple of proposed solutions, DG, that I'd like to believe is sufficient content for you as a department to take forward and really engage the Department of Minerals and Energy. And that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you very much and have yourselves a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zulu. It was indeed a very interesting dialogue and discussion. There's a lot that the department has learned, because even as a department, because we're not in the sector, we just hear about complaints and not know about the opportunities that exist. I think both the presenters, Ms. Soko and Ms. Lamini, indicated what the challenges are and what are the possible solutions, but also the presentation from SALGA and DMRE shows that there are opportunities. So this means that we need to meet again to look at how do we take this forward? How do we not only us having had the information here, how do you make sure that many women out there understand? How do we make sure that we raise awareness for women, for them to be able to buy shares from WUSA? Because most of the people think WUSA is something that is big, that they cannot be able to be part of. DMRE is indicating that the minister is looking at finances. Minister is aware of the fact that being involved, even with the 100 megawatt, this new initiative is still need lots of money, and the minister is looking into that for finances. So the way forward, sorry, from today is that as a department, we will definitely meet, we'll analyze the recordings and identify areas where ourselves, SALGA and DMRE can come together and look at what is it that we can do in order for women to be able to have information, to have access to information, but also for them to be able to benefit, more especially those that are already within the sector. Because it's important that we know that it's those that already have the understanding, have the know-how it makes it easier for them to be involved rather than go out there and take anyone who is out there and will come in, and you find that money is spent on them and we cannot be able to achieve. This is what leads to some of the programs failing and people saying, no, we've tried women, but women are not interested, or women are always failing. It depends on which one was selected. So now we have women in the sector who are saying we are there, we know, so we'll take it from here. Thank you very much, Minister, for giving us this opportunity. The recording will be flighted on the 2nd of March. I think that's what I've been informed. But this is not where it's going to end. As indicated, we are going to take this discussion forward, where we have to write and request the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy to come up with amendments or policies or whatever. We'll do that. Also, the issue of the charter between ourselves and DMRE, because it's already doing a lot. We will look at the issue of the charter and look at how do we take it from here, but also the issue of encouraging the private sector to self-regulate. I think it's very important. DMRE and ourselves, and SALGA, because SALGA plays an important role in the municipalities. We'll look into that and we'll take this forward. Thank you very much. And Minister, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Maluleke. Thank you, Lebohang. Thank you, everybody. Bye.